Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
With just a few months to go before the United States elects a new president, a new biography of current President Barack Obama contends that his early years in multicultural Hawaii and Muslim Indonesia prepared him to be the nation's first global president. The book is entitled Barack Obama in Hawaii and Indonesia, The Making of a Global President. So in this book, cross-cultural psychologist and marketing consultant Dr. Dinesh Sharma explores the connections between Obama's early upbringing and his adult views of civil society, secular Islam, and globalization. The book draws on the author's on-the-ground research and extensive first-hand interviews in Jakarta, in Honolulu, New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. to evaluate the multicultural inputs to Obama's character and the ways in which they prepared him to meet the challenges of world leadership in the 21st century. We'll take calls on 0891104207, SMSs 34701. Dr. Dinesh Sharma is a senior fellow at the Institute for International and Cross-Cultural Psychology in New York. He's also a columnist for Asia Times, published in Thailand and Hong Kong, and he joins us from our studios in Durban. Dr. Sharma, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, as we know, since his rise to prominence, even before he became POTUS, as they call him, President of the United States,
that's right.
Many books have been written about President Obama. What makes this one different?
Yeah, of course, he's written two books himself, Dreams for My Father and Audacity of Hope. So my book, most books really begin in Chicago in earnest, which is where Barack Obama, broke his political teeth, became a state senator and then U.S. senator, and then of course ran from there as the first black president. So my book looks at the first 18 years in Hawaii and Indonesia, and I ask the question, how is it that in the 232 years history of the United States, they elected the first African-American, the first black president, or the first multicultural president, as argued in my book, at this turning point in history. And I try to locate it in some ways to his early upbringing in Hawaii and Indonesia, the two islands really, because Hawaii is an island, and so is Indonesia, an archipelago of thousands of islands. Yeah. So he grows up there. And at a very interesting point in history, after World War II, after the Berlin Wall is coming down in the 80s, he's sort of jetting back and forth in the 70s and 80s through the Pacific. Yeah. And based on a lot of developmental, psychological, cultural evidence, I argue that really shaped his worldview in many ways. And of course, this is Women's Month here in South Africa, so I have to mention Obama's mother and grandmother. Yes. There's a chapter in the book about women who shaped Obama, because his, of course, Kenyan father, as I think most people in Africa would know, left the young Barack at the age of 2 to go to Harvard and then returns to Kenya, doesn't come back to the United States except for 1 month in the Christmas winter of 1971 when he meets the young Barack at the age of, I think, 11 or 12. Other than that, it's the women who raise Obama. The mother, Ann Dunham, the anthropologist, the grandmother, the banker at the Bank of Hawaii, Madeline Dunham, really shape his upbringing. And then, of course, Michelle Obama comes into the picture in Chicago. Yes. So it's really the women. So I take my hat off to the women here in South Africa to make that point that really Obama in some ways was shaped by the strong women. And so the early upbringing really kind of shaped his worldview. And that's why Americans responded to him in large numbers, his global biography. And of course, the fact that America is going through a demographic change where it's becoming more diverse. By 2040, America will be a 50-50 nation. Half of the population will be Caucasian, white, and the other half will be a mix of, a bunch of other colors and like the rainbow, if you will, of other colors. And this is based on the U.S. Census data, right? Yeah. So Obama, in a way, I argue in the book, is a harbinger, really, of all the changes that America is facing internally and the changes of globalization, the pressures of globalization from outside.
It's interesting because you start off the book declaring that he is a sign of changing times, a product of globalization that's been spurred by American power. How do you think that that's his presence, obviously, but also what's going on globally and the changes internally in the United States of America, what that's going to mean for a future United States of America?
Well, Obama interestingly came in at a time when the American economy was in a tailspin. As you know, Americans were losing about 700,000 jobs a month, and America had been engaged in 2 long wars. The Afghan war being the longest war that America has been engaged in now for more than 10 years. So, I argue in the book that Obama really inherited a world where American power was challenged, overextended, and devolving, partly because of the rise of the rest of the world, so China rising.
Yeah.
And of course, we see China's footprint in Africa now in a strong way. Every other editorial I read for the last few weeks is talking about how China is the best thing for Africa. And then, of course, the rise of Russia, and other BRIC economies, Brazil, Russia, India, and then, of course, South Africa, or the African economies as well, taking lead. So it's not that that these countries are posing a challenge to the West. It's that they're trying to catch up with the West, and they're really doing it at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
So the American empire, the accidental empire that America kind of assumed the role after World War II, is now facing severe challenges globally. And of course, partly it has to do with the fact that we're living in a post 9/11 world. After the Twin Towers were brought down, and we're looking at as Huntington said, it's sort of a clash of civilizations. Of course, it can be debated, and Obama has said this, of course, in Cairo, in Ghana, and Turkey, that America is not at war with Islam. But there is clearly a faction of the Islamic world which is radical and does threaten Western institutions, Western power, and America in particular. So that's one challenge that clearly Obama has been responding to in doing global diplomacy. And then, of course, economically, America is struggling now in the post 9/11 world to innovate and to stay ahead of the curve, if you will, and to keep up with the developing economies in China, India, Brazil, Russia, as I mentioned earlier. So these are some of the challenges that Obama inherited, on the day that he came into power. And these are huge, huge challenges. So clearly, he's a global president. His biography resonates, speaks to the changing times, but the challenges are in some ways insurmountable.
Why is the cultural context of where he grew up important in understanding his present motivations and his present leadership style?
Well, we now have, quite a bit of scientific evidence across the academy, neuroscience, developmental, psychological, cultural evidence to suggest that that early shaping, of yourself and early environment in the home makes a significant impact on not only your own understanding of yourself, but also of your understanding of the world, emotionally, cognitively, and in this case, obviously, politically. So a lot of the narrative that Obama uses and the political narrative that Obama uses, which excites the population in the U.S., in some ways has been future looking. To trying to unite the various parts of America. There's no white America, black America, red America, blue America. There's only one United States of America. This is what he said in 2004 in his speech in Boston. So Obama's inspiring rhetoric speaks to not only the challenges America is facing, but also informed deeply by his upbringing in Hawaii, which is multicultural, his upbringing in Indonesia, which was syncretic. So Professor Mazrui, who's I'm sure you've heard, he's the African sort of scholar. So he has said he's shared this insight with me that there were 2 historic prophecies in history that have sought fulfillment in the struggle to elect the first black president of the United States. And the first was the prediction that Mahatma Gandhi made in 1936 when he prophesied that it may be through the black man that the unadulterated message of nonviolence will be delivered to the world. So I'm here in Durban attending the Gandhi Trust meeting from Roots to Fruits. So I think it's appropriate to mention that. So this is, of course, a 100-year-old prophecy almost that Gandhiji had about nonviolence and how it will be realized through the black man. Of course, Obama, almost admitted this when he spoke at the Indian Congress in 2009 when he said, I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for the black preacher who came, from Alabama, and Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah. And the second prophecy was by Robert Kennedy in 1968, the year he was assassinated.
Yeah.
He said in an interview to Voice of America that where he predicted that in 2008, roughly 40 years or so from when he was assassinated, that America will have the first black president. So Professor Mazrui says, he muses, sort of kiddingly, that of course Obama is, the product of multiculturalism, Indonesian syncretism, and at least three civilizations: American, African, and Islam, right? And of course, he's born in Hawaii, raised in Indonesia, from an African father, American white mother, right? He has a Swahili name, Baraka, and a Muslim middle name, Hussein, and an African family name. So he muses jokingly, does Obama stand a chance of embodying the Gandhian soul force? Amen.
That's interesting.
So these are the challenges he's facing, but you see the biography and the narrative. It's global, it's transnational, it's international, because of his upbringing. And that's what inspires Americans to look into the future, to kind of take a leap of faith, which is what they did with Barack Obama, the 44th president of the United States. They took a leap into the future. And I think clearly a positive move in the sense that it shows, despite America's kind of power wielding around the world, it does seem connected with the world, because the rest of the world was also excited about Barack Obama on November 4th, 2008, in a tremendous way. But of course, with three months, we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
What happens, yeah. But a lot of prophecies, have been fulfilled in the election of Barack Obama.
In conversation with Dr. Dinesh Sharma, who is Senior Fellow at the Institute for International and Cross-Cultural Psychology in New York, also a columnist for Asia Times, published in Thailand and Hong Kong, talking about the book Barack Obama in Hawaii and Indonesia, The Making of a Global President.
Morning Talk on SAFM.
Talking about the book Barack Obama in Hawaii and Indonesia, The Making of a Global President, talking to the author, Dr. Dinesh Sharma, this morning. So let's talk a little bit about the paradigm shift that he may or may not represent, because many people, of course, when he was elected, were elated because they felt that change was coming. That the cultural underpinnings and the cultural context might actually make him different, but there's a feeling now that it's just more of the same.
Yeah, so that's a good question, right? So clearly when Obama came into office, the marketing team did an excellent job in presenting him as the change maker, the almost the messiah, who was going to walk on water. And of course, some of that was marketing, some of that was needed in the sense that because the challenge was insurmountable.
Oh dear. Okay, I don't know what's just happened. I think we might have lost Dr. Dinesh Sharma. He is in our Durban studios. We'll see if we can get him back online. All right, let me take a call from Ahmed in Cape Town while we get Dr. Sharma back on the line. Hi, Ahmed.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, Siki, I don't know where your guest is coming from here. First of all, I would like if you could ask him this question. Has he visited the families in Afghanistan that have lost members from American drone strikes under this Obama administration? Has he visited Somali families? Just last week, 20 Somali civilians were killed by American drone strike. I mean, in Yemen, a whole farming community has been wiped out by American drone strikes in Yemen. In Pakistan, many civilians, every day people are protesting about American drone strikes. There was a research done, that found that there are more drone strikes today under the Obama administration than the President Bush administration. And my second point, Siki.
No, let me do this, Ahmed.
Can I ask you this, Siki?
Wait, before you do that, let me say this, because that's where we were getting to now before I lost him on the line to talk about his current context.
And I'm not criticizing you, but
I'm not saying you are.
Just a few weeks ago, Obama gave 70 million more to Israel. Now, I'm asking the question, where is this gentleman coming from? Is he really, he's just like many people who support Obama.
He's not defending, I read the book, and the book is not about defending what Americans are doing at the moment. It's looking at his early upbringing and how it may or may not have shaped where he is today. It's actually a psychological book.
But he says, Chiki, that Obama, is not at war. He's against radical Muslims. The thing is this, Shiki. I'm not seeing much different. In fact, in many cases, Obama, and people are going to condemn me for this, some Obama cheerleaders. In many cases, Obama, some of his policies are even worse than President Bush. And what I'm saying to the gentleman, are we judging a person by his color, or are we judging a person in what he's doing, And to me personally, Obama is a bigger supporter of Israel shockingly than President Bush. So what I'm saying is, why are people still defending Obama?
All right.
Simply because he's an African American? I don't understand that, because at the end of the day, if you kill civilians, you still kill civilians.
All right,
Regardless
Ahmed,
of
let
what
me see if I can
background,
get him
Muslim,
to...
Christian, or
All right, let me get a response. Thanks, Ahmed. That's Ahmed in Cape Town. Dr. Sharma, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes. I don't know what
Excellent.
happened there. Sorry.
Yeah,
about
so I
that.
think, these are issues that are obviously very contentious and won't be solved overnight, yeah? Certainly the Palestinian-Israeli issue has been with us for 100 years, yeah? It's the 100-year pill, as somebody has said,
Yeah.
the headache that doesn't seem to go away. I've written about this myself, I wrote a piece for Asia Times when Pew Research, a nonpartisan group in the United States, released a survey, multinational survey, basically pointing out how Obama's numbers had dropped significantly, especially on the Islamic street, the street that America has been trying to court before 9/11, after 9/11, the attacks. So clearly the veneer, or the sheen or the shine, if you will, on Obama's image has gone down. And I've written about it to say that people think that he's gone from dreams to drones now in a way that they never anticipated, and he's turned out to be more hawkish in his foreign policy, which, to his critics in the United States, that's a huge plus and a strong point. So for instance, the Republicans in multiple surveys have said that killing Osama bin Laden was Obama's strongest achievement in the first 4 years. Can you? I mean, can you believe that? But it is true. There's a section of the American electorate still thinks that Obama is a closet Muslim. He's not really American. He's out to really destroy America, et cetera, et cetera. All this rhetoric is on the air. I mean, you can just Google it and find it on the air through Fox News or other outlets. Yeah. So clearly, he's fighting a battle inside the United States. Within the American electorate itself, to kind of remain a viable presidential candidate for the next 4 years,
And that's the interesting character, is that he's got the internal battle at home, and then he's also having to fight the global image and a different battle on the international stage.
Right. And of course, to the gentleman who called in, I take his points very seriously, and I've written about it myself on Asia Times. So I'm not clueless, as he might have suggested earlier, and I'm not trying to sell Obama's biography here. He's done his job quite well himself. I'm only looking at the socio-political, cultural context in which he came into power to explain where America is headed, or where some of the challenges America is facing. So if you look at Obama's alternative, Mitt Romney, he's even more hawkish than Obama has been, at least thus far, on all of the foreign policy initiatives. He's been talking about going into Iran, and that it's okay for Israel to, take actions against Iran and the like. So, we have to kind of balance this debate with what else is going on in the United States, the factions within the United States, as well as what the alternatives are. And clearly, I submit that Obama's foreign policy, especially in the Islamic population, Islamic countries, has not been well received.
All right, we're going to pick up on that and then also talk about where to from here. And he'll also tell us where people can get the book. I'd really recommend that you read it before you criticize. It's 24 minutes at 2:11 here on SAFM 104 to 107. We are wrapping up our conversation with Dr. Dinesh Sharma, who's a senior fellow at the Institute for International and Cross-Cultural Psychology in New York, also a columnist for the Asia Times, published in Thailand and in Hong Kong. And we're talking about the book, Barack Obama in Hawaii and Indonesia. You talked a little bit earlier, Dr. Sharma, about the influence that the woman, his mother, his grandmother, and of course now his wife have had on his life. And I find it interesting because he had an absent biological father, and that's supposed to do untold damage to a young child, especially a young boy. So do you think the women were just that much stronger?
Well, the women clearly, this has been documented, quite convincingly now in several biographies, that clearly the women were there. Anne Dunham was waking him up at 4 a.m. to teach him English in Jakarta through correspondence schools, and was there to look after his needs and comforts, till the age of 10. And then, because his grandparents, Madeline Dunham and Stanley Dunham, insisted that he go to the elite prep school in Honolulu called the Punahou School, he was sent to Hawaii to live with his grandparents, a few blocks away from this elite preparatory school that's been there for 150 plus years. It's the largest preparatory school west of the Mississippi River. And it's partly in the book I argue clearly the women shaped Obama's kind of vision and the grandmother in particular, the pragmatist kind of approach that Obama takes, because Madeline Dunham was a banker and a Republican at that.
Yeah.
So clearly the women had a significant influence in his life. And the school, Punahou School, is an institution by itself. Yeah. So if you're in Honolulu, they don't ask you whether you went to Harvard or Stanford. They ask you which high school did you go to. And if you went to Punahou, that classifies you in a certain bracket of social, class and strata right away. So that without that school, you wouldn't necessarily have the cool, collected, Obama who can speak on any subject under the sun without any kind of accent or appearing to be stereotypically ethnic in any form or shape. Yeah. So that learning really shaped his global outlook as well. And Punahou has had multiculturalism as a policy for almost 100 years at the school. But when you peel through the cultural layering, and I argue in the book partly at the end, when you peel through the cultural layerings of Obama's early upbringing, no father, strong mother figures, raises himself by the bootstraps, you see this pattern. It's an archetypal kind of American pattern where other presidents as well, like Bill Clinton recently, did not have a father, strong mother.
Yeah.
And Obama's, political hero, Abraham Lincoln, had a similar kind of relationship with his father, very distant relationship with his father, was raised really by his stepmother. His biological mother had died when he was very young. And then going all the way back to Jefferson and George Washington. So there is historical and developmental evidence to suggest that this is a uniquely, in some ways, American pattern where you have these young boys who are fatherless, who then want to raise themselves and become fathers of the nation, if you will, by the bootstraps. And in the process, they kind of reconstruct their identity while reconstructing a kind of a vision for the American society in the process. So it's a uniquely American archetypal pattern that we see playing out in Obama's life when you peel through the cultural layering. The other pattern, the dominant pattern, which is represented by Mitt Romney, is that you've had American presidents who were really patricians. That is, they came from very strong business, political, or religious families. Their fathers were either senators, governors, or head of a church and a religious movement. And then their sons really grow up looking up to their fathers as the ideals, of role models that they look up to and grow up with, and they want to emulate them. So Mitt Romney, in many ways, fits that prototype of a patrician whose father was governor of Michigan, was head of GM Motors. So so Obama, while Obama fits the Bill Clinton, kind of archetype, the Mitt Romney, presidential sort of ticket, it hasn't been announced yet. We know that he's the candidate. We're waiting for his VP, announcement. We don't know who that's going to be. But Mitt Romney clearly fits the prototype of the George Bush, the Kennedy, the Roosevelts, the Adams, who come from strong, patrician, wealthy families who then want to take the reins of the country into the future.
We're going to have to leave it there. Interesting. And the book is available, right?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon and various other websites, and I think some local bookstores as well in South Africa.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dr. Sharma.
I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Dr. Dinesh Sharma is author of the book Barack Obama in Hawaii and Indonesia, The Making of a Global President. As I said, many political biographies of Obama, very few that actually deal with the socio-cultural and psychological aspects of his upbringing, of his